Here now live in studio, the Heritage Foundation President, Kevin Roberts. Kevin, good to see you. Thanks for being with us. Okay, so I think you see the politics changing so much in America. I think Republicans were or perceived to be the party of the rich, Democrats working class, is completely flipped. And so what you have here is Democrats raising $1 billion plus for a presidential campaign. But when they do that, it's the rich elites on the coast that are giving the money, leaving a wide gaping hole for working class Americans that Republicans went to. But how does a campaign, you know campaigns, spend $1 billion and still be in debt today?
Well, they spend $1 billion because they spend millions of dollars on elites, pop culture icons, who might be fine people, but what they learned was they don't sway public opinion that much. And the more they did this, I mean, think about this, Sean, paying $1 million to Oprah Winfrey. Who needs $1 million if your name's Oprah Winfrey? But more than that, which is the waste of money, which is an example of how they run the government the last 3.5 years, right. It told the average American, even if they might agree with Harris on some things, this lady can't run a government. This isn't about elites. This is about ordinary Americans, and we're ready to have our power back.
I just find it really rich, and I use that word intentionally, that we gave them money and they lied to us. If you looked at what had been done to working men and women in the last 4 years by Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, you would have saved your money, or you would have donated it to a worthy cause, not that campaign. And to act like you were somehow duped is just beyond the pale.
And that's just it, Dagan. You put your finger on it. It was the condescension. It is the condescension. I mean, let's keep in mind, Trump and Vance won a great victory, and I think they're going to have a huge set of policy achievements. But what the left still has not learned is that their condescension toward us, toward the two of you, toward your audience, toward the ordinary Americans, is actually part of the problem. Until and unless they address that, we're going to keep winning election after election, and we will usher in a golden era of conservative policy reform for the ordinary American.
Which I think is so important. It brings me to your book, which thank you for a copy. It's Dawn's Early Light, Taking Back Washington to Save America. Again, I only got to read a little bit. Dagan got a little more into it than I did. But tell us about the book. Why write it?
Actually, this conversation we're having about Harris's ridiculous, bloated campaign dollars is a perfect context for this. I grew up in a working class family, single household, during the oil bust in South Louisiana. Millions of Americans have had this experience. I'm not saying I'm special about this, but I learned as a young conservative, the first registered Republican in my family, that in fact government was not the answer. There could be government, there ought to be government, but community, faith, mentors, these are the people we need. But most of all, Sean, and I really have appreciated this the 3 years I've spent in Washington, Washington is the problem, and we have to get Washington and New York elites, y'all are in New York, but not elites, out of the way, so that ordinary Americans can in fact run their lives again. That's what I learned, is what the book is about. It's also about an aspirational vision for America. I think that America's best days may be ahead.
So what in this book, and J.D. Vance, Vice President-elect, wrote the foreword, what in this book is going to make the left's heads explode? Just name one thing, because, you know, Project 2025, well, that battering ram got worn out by the Democrats, and it did buck us.
The fact that it's being released by the architect of Project 2025, sitting with you now, probably has caused their heads to explode. Heritage will never roll over, because although we are in D.C., we are not of D.C., and the more they lied about us, the more they mischaracterized us, the more they tried to sink our friends Trump and Vance politically, the more it steeled our resolve to do what we do. But the key thing, Dagan, to get to the heart of your question, is that I talk about regenerating institutions. I'm an outdoorsman. I love the concept of controlled burns, which the Forest Service ought to do more so that we could have healthier forests. Figuratively speaking, that's what we need to do with institutions. Schools, universities, the Boy Scouts of America, all of these have to be upended peacefully and steadily so that ordinary Americans have those institutions that they can use to transmit our values from one generation to the next. The left hates that, because that's how you keep America America.
And Kevin, you probably wondered what I was doing. I was walking around you before when you sat down, just to make sure, as the author or leader of Project 2025, you have no horns on your head. I was amazed. It's like it's actually no horns. But I think it's interesting, though. North Carolina has been a perfect example of not looking to the government, but actually looking to your neighbors and your community in hard times to go, you know what, we Americans can step up and help each other out. It's always not the government. as the answer. Can't wait to read the book. Kevin, thank you for being with us. We are so grateful. Again, it comes out tomorrow. Dawn's Early Light, right?
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me.